Good evening. I'm calling this special meeting to order. The time is 5:31 p.m. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This meeting is officially open with the quorum present. And do want to acknowledge that Trustee Wallace Bridges is joining us virtually via Zoom. So he is on with us today. At this time, we will hear public comment addressing items on the agenda. Let me remind you that because of restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct the person to visit with staff about the issue. No presentation may exceed 3 minutes unless the speaker has prior approval for additional time because of the use of a translator. Speakers who require the assistance of a translator are permitted double the allotted time of speakers who do not require the assistance of a translator. Speakers, when your name is called, approach the podium by going to the back of the room, down the stairs, and coming up the side wall on your right. As soon as the speaker begins speaking, the time clock will begin. Our first speaker tonight is Diego Escobar, followed by Lori Motley. So we have Diego Escobar, Lori Motley, who will then be followed by Ms. Robin Kelly. Those are our 3 speakers, so if you want to go ahead and make your way.
Good evening, Dr. Molinar and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Laurie Motley, and I'm a proud, passionate school counselor in Fort Worth ISD. For the past 8 years, I've poured my heart into my work, first at Diamond Hill Jarvis and now at I Am Terrell. I'm here tonight not just as an employee, but as someone who believes deeply in the district and the students that we serve. I'm here tonight because I'm disheartened. The proposed 2.5% raise for counselors, alongside an 8% raise for teachers, sends a message that is loud and clear. Our role, responsibilities, and our contributions are not valued. This is more than numbers. It's about respect. Counselors are not just a support staff. We are leaders on our campuses. We are the ones students and staff turn to in crisis. We are the bridge between families, staff, and administration. We guide students through college and career decisions, walk with them through trauma, celebrate their wins, and help them rebuild after their losses. We field emails, calls, texts when things go awry anytime we are off campus, whether that be for personal reasons or professional development. We do all of this while meeting rigorous state and district demands, pursuing advanced training, and working extended hours and extended contracts, often without recognition. Under this proposed raise, a teacher with the same years of experience would earn more per day than a counselor, despite our advanced degrees, additional certifications, and nearly year-round workload. How is that sustainable? How is that equitable? Mr. Bailey stated in the last board meeting that this is an effort to place emphasis back in the classroom. We are in the classroom. Counselors are essential to the classroom because we help students who are emotionally dysregulated get back to a place where they learn. We identify root causes and connect them with resources and support they need. Our work allows teachers to teach and students to thrive. This is not about asking for more than teachers. We stand with the teacher colleagues. We advocate for them just as we do our students. But our roles are not the same, our responsibilities are not the same, and our compensation should not ignore that difference. A 2.5% raise does not just fall short, it's demoralizing. You're asking us to carry the emotional weight of this district, to care for every student, support every teacher, respond to every crisis, and yet you're telling us through this raise that our efforts don't warrant fair compensation. I drive every day into Fort Worth ISD, even though I see Lamar High School in Arlington in my backyard. I do that because I love this district and I choose to stay here. I believe in the work that we do and I know that I make a difference. But I feel as if we do not come to If we do not have equitable compensation, many qualified counselors will leave or even stop applying for our positions altogether. We are stretched thin and being asked to accept less. This is about equity and retention. It's about valuing professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Robin Kelly.
Good evening. That's a long walk down that little hall. I'm like, okay. Let me just start by saying I believe in public education. When I ran for board, I really believe in that. Dr. Molinar and all board members, please be a doer of your word. In your 2025-26 budget roadmap, Dr. Molinar, you say the district strategic plan is a roadmap to address the needs of our students and to work to accelerate student outcomes. Literacy is horrible here. So please make sure you are a doer of these alignments that you're doing, whether it's redirecting dollars to support implementation of pre-K district literacy plan, focusing on the increase of dyslexia support, increase family engagement support and literacy events. I'm a believer in all that. Please make sure, I'm gonna make sure that you're on account too. I know that you said that because you believe that. I hope that it will be put into fruition. Please be a doer of your word. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And one more call for Diego Escobar.
Good evening, Superintendent Molinar, President Martinez, and members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Diego Escobar, and I'm a junior at Pasco High School, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my counselors at Pasco and the counselors that I've had throughout my time in FWISD. Over the past 3 years at Pasco, my school counselors have been much more than just people who create my schedule. They have been guiding me academically, making sure I'm enrolled in the right classes and staying on track. One of my counselors, Ms. Underwood, even went out of her way to help me arrange and prepare my Spanish placement test. They've also supported me emotionally during my freshman year. There was a tragic incident involving 2 of our students. As difficult as the time that was, I remember feeling a sense of safety and comfort because of the support I received from my counselor. Coming from one of the smallest middle schools to one of the largest high schools in the district was a big transition, and my counselors helped me make the transition smoother. School counselors have many responsibilities that most people may not see, but their work has a real impact on students like me. They support our academic paths, emotional well-being, and future goals. We often hear that school counseling is a work of art, and while that's true, I also believe they deserve to be fairly compensated for their hard work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was our final speaker. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts this evening. Next on the agenda is the 2025-2026 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and the Child Nutrition Services Fund presentation, and I will turn it over to Dr. Molinar.
Thank you, President Martinez. We have our CFO here this evening. We know we have done a few budget workshops, and it is our time to adopt a budget for the 25-26 school year. So we have asked her to review and then update us on current legislation that has been finalized in Austin. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Candelaria.
Carmen Arieta Candelaria, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the district. Today's presentation is an overview of where we have been working towards, and we will be asking the board to adopt a budget this evening. Today marks the end of a very long process that we've had over the last year in order to get us to today. Today, I'm going to go over the proposed budgets for 25-26 for the three funds that you're required to adopt: the general fund, the debt services fund, and the food services fund. We will also be publishing our 25-26 budget book on the website as prepared by staff. And so that'll go after the board adopts the budget. That book will go up on our website where we post all of our adopted budgets. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize staff, some of which is in the audience, our Executive Director of Budget, Patricia Young, and I see a couple members of the staff as well, actually 3 members now of the staff from the budget team. Very proud of the work that they've done over this last year. It has been a very challenging year because of the many changes that have come through, but they persevered and are helping me present the budget today. So thank you for that. Also today, the compensation plan, Chief Woodrow Bailey will be presenting that. That will come to the board as an amendment to the budget in July or August, along with the associated revenues to support that plan. Our budget roadmap is aligned to our district strategic plan. This is a quote from Dr. Molinar, our leader and strongest supporter of this budget. This budget is our roadmap to address the needs of our students and work to accelerate student incomes. There have been very thoughtful decisions that have been woven through the entire through this entire budget, all aligned to the strategic plan. These are some of the budget priorities that we aligned within our budget. I went over these in detail at the last meeting, but all of the work that's been going on in order for us to make sure that they are aligned with our 4 priorities. The first being our student academic excellence, student and family engagement our second, our third, employee effectiveness and retention, and our 4th, operational alignment and efficiency, all focused on the district strategic plan. So first and foremost, the combined budget for all 3 funds is a combined total of $1,066,212,639, and they're comprised of those 3 those 3 funds that I mentioned. First, the general fund, with an estimated appropriations of $69,731,000. They're listed by function, and you can see the breakdown there. The board is required to adopt a budget by fund and function. The next column is the debt services fund. We are bringing a budget to you with estimated appropriations of $149,722,000. And lastly, our food service fund with a budget of $46,758,000. What's not included in the budget, as I indicated, is a compensation plan that will be presented by Chief Bailey, which includes our salary increases, stipends, market adjustments, and related benefits. That budget amendment, again, will be coming back to you in either July or August. There is no proposed increase in the TRS active care contribution. I'll go into a little bit about that. We have picked up both contributions in 23-24 and 24-25 that increased the premium by $88 a month, and that was a combined total of $6.4 million that is included in the budget. But again, the proposed increase that I'll go over with is not included. And some one-time non-recurrent capital expenses that we're still evaluating to determine what is the most appropriate method of funding. So starting off with the general fund, this has not changed. These are all of the revenue assumptions that we proposed in the last presentation. The budget is based on a estimated average daily attendance of 62,464, based on a 69,021 student enrollment. And that is Also, we've included our property taxes there as well. Those have increased slightly at 1.8% year over year. So we have a total local assignment of 55.4% of revenues and 43.6% of state revenues, with federal rounding out a small amount. On the expenditure side, on the allocations by function, again, the budget was aligned to strategic plan priorities. You see our investment of almost 2% in instruction that went up from the prior year at 58.32%. We also have embedded our staffing guidelines at the campus level and refined those and aligned them again to ensure that our instructional delivery was most important. We also have a strategic schedule shift in the middle schools where we did our block scheduling and again incorporated that into the budget. That added another 21 positions into the budget and is part of our increase in instructional expenses. And of course, the departmental requests that put together this year a very detailed PowerPoint presentation by department that outlines their key initiatives and also their spend plan for the year. Those PowerPoint presentations will serve as the foundation for our progress to trying to achieve a meritorious budget award from the GFOA in the coming year. Our general fund comparison, looking at it this year over year, in 23-24, we ended the year with appropriations of expenditures of $850,708, over revenues of $823,491, becoming a deficit of $27,216. So we ended the fund balance at $374,458. Part of that fund balance was unspent, and so we carried that over in the revised fund balance. But first, under the original general fund, you recall that we bought a balanced budget in the prior year, but we added about a 2% compensation that led us to a $17,650,000 deficit. And then where we also carried over about $28 million of that fund balance for purchase orders that were rolled. And that's where you see our revised fund balance of $880,734, where we are where we adopted the budget with amendments at $45,911,000. Where we project to end the year is $826,655,430. We're a little short on revenues, primarily attributable to the property taxes. I think I've been reporting this for some time at the Finance Committee as well as here at the board level. We continue to see tax refunds coming in higher than anticipated. The revenues for 25-26 have been adjusted accordingly. So we're going to be a little short on our what we estimate to be on our revenues, but then we anticipate to be a little bit better on our estimated expenditures, leaving a deficit amount of $50,496,000, or less than 1% of the budget. So we end up the year with approximately $323 million in fund balance. So for 25-26, we're proposing, again, a use of that fund balance, $43,559,000 deficit, comprised of the $826,172 million in revenues, and then our estimated appropriations of $869,731,000. So how are we going to fund the budget deficit? We're going to fund it out of fund balance at this time, and I'll go into the legislative recap in just a minute. So here we're looking at our number of days and our fund balance, where we think we're going to end up the years. We are proposing to use about 17 days as a result of this budget, which would leave us to 118.17 days at the end of, again, this is projected at the end of June 30th, 2026. Again, we're still staying above that marker of 90 days of recommended fund balance that GFOA recommends there. We do have some information. I had come to the board and said that on June 3rd, TRS would publish the rates for 25-26. They did so on that date, and as expected, we anticipated that there was going to be an increase, despite the fact that there was some additional money that was appropriated through the legislature, but again, that was insufficient to cover all of the expenses that the plan has been incurring. So even with the additional money from the legislature, we still are seeing an increase of about $49 a month in the active care primary employee-only plan. Again, there's other increases throughout the plan that, because this is just for the primary plan, of which many of our employees participate. We have 5,776 employees that participate in this plan. Again, just a reminder, in 23-24, 24-25, we picked up both increases in each year, $44 each year, and then of course that doubled, if you will, in the second year, covering $88. So it went from $287 in 22-23, 23-24 was $331 a month per employee, and then in 24-25, we increased that to $375. I did revise this slide here just to make sure that we communicated clearly, because there was some outreach from employees, and I want to make sure that I communicate correctly this particular side. The estimated cost of this year's increase, if the district picks that up, is about $3.4 million. So the recommendation for this year, due to the budget constraints, is that the employees pick up the full increase of $49 a month for 25-26. So in the primary plan, for example, the employee's contribution would go from $130 to $179 a month. The district would continue to contribute the $375 a month to offset the employee's premium. So now let's look at the increase in rates. This is our internal calculations and shows the difference for the various plans. So for example, the first at the top right hand of the slide, you see the TRS active care rates for Region 11. You see that the employee only for 24-25 is $505. For 25-26, it would now go to $554, which is a 9.7% increase. And then you can see the amount of money that the employees pay on the next set of numbers, going from $130 to $179. So overall, there is that plan, and then I've also listed the TRS Active Care Primary plan, and then the TRS Active Care HD. So on the bottom right hand of the slide, you can see how much we currently contribute. So right now, our district contribution is $25,992,000 that we contribute towards employees' health care that are signed up, that do carry that plan, which is the 5,776 employees. So if we were to pick up the entire increase, it would be $3,396,000. So that's how this slide, that's the explanation on this particular slide. I also added here, this is straight from their plan. This is the plan highlights document that you can go out and look at. I know it's very, very, very small, but I know that you can look at it online. There's a link there to the TRS website where you can go out and look at Region 11's plan highlights for 25-26 and see how the plan, the different co-pays and the different aspects of the plan. Now, taking just a brief overview of the proposed compensation package, and certainly not to steal any of Chief Bailey's thunder, but this is a summation of the compensation package, just for reference, so that I can explain the gap in funding from the legislature. So the total plan is $30,099,000 because this includes the salaries of $27,116,000 plus the fringe fringe benefits of almost $3 million, and that gets me to $30,099,000. It is partially offset by HB2. They're providing, according to current estimates, $21,392,000. So looking at the legislature, again, that ended on June 2nd, 2025. The main school financing bill was HB2, but there were also bills throughout the legislature that have also impacted, and we are tracking those. Some of those don't necessarily affect funding, but they do impact certain aspects of school finance governance. The recommendation from all groups is to analyze those bills and make sure that we have an understanding before incorporating into the district's budget. And so we have done that. But here I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities to close the gap. Regarding teacher compensation, this is for districts that have more than 5,000 students, a $2,500 per student for teachers, for each teacher with 3 or 4 years of experience, and then $5,000 per teacher with teachers with 5 or more years of experience. And there was an allotment of $45 per the regular program ADA that provided a compensation increase for the groups that are listed there, but not including administrative staff. So here we have potential pickup of $21,393,000. Here's some other things that will definitely impact and support our teacher incentive allotment beginning in fiscal year 2027. There's a lot of things in there that are really going to be beneficial for our program here. There's numerous changes related to teacher certification, including requirements to pay higher salaries to those beginning teachers with certain specific credentials, and then funding for some partnership programs around teacher participation. Again, all of these are starting in 2027, so right now there's it's to be determined how much we would actually receive. Our basic allotment increase is $55. The total increase that for the basic plus weighted allotments is about $7.6 million. But I pulled out the weight associated with pre-K here so that I could show you, give you a little bit more information. So what's going into the pickup for that allotment alone, as presented, is $5,368,000. And then there was a new allotment called the ABC, allotment for basic costs, that was going to be allocated for certain fixed costs as well, such as utilities, transportation, insurance, payroll taxes, employee benefits, $7,463,000. This was an allotment that was given to recognize all of those additional costs, costs for inflation that have occurred since the last increase in the basic allotment. This is not the basic allotment. This is separate from that and is called, like I said, ABC. So a pickup there of almost $5 million. The next pickup is about a $3.1 million amount in the amount of the school safety allotment, from $20 up from $10 per ADA, and up from $15,000 per campus to $33,540 per campus. This new weight of 0.01 is going to be applied to all to all K through 3 ADA in addition to the current weight. So this gives us a little bit more money to fund that second half of the day. That was the amount that I pulled out of the basic allotment calculation. So there specifically $2,019,000. We had a loss because of some of the provisions related to the golden penny. Those are frozen at the yield of $129.52. Also an offset by the recapture on golden pennies. We had a slight improvement on the recapture, but all in all, we have lost $1,306,000 as a result of that provision in the law. And then an overhaul of the special education funding, that's going to occur in 27. But for this year, we are going to get some additional funding because of the initial evaluation allotment that begins in fiscal year 2026. So pick up there at $2.4 million. So overall, our potential offset, we started with a proposed budget, a deficit of 43 million. We've added the compensation cost of 30,099,000, and we estimate based on all of those pickups that I noted, 40,647,000 for a net deficit of 33,011,577. Now, this represents a 3.8% of our total budget. And so we have always wanted to come forward with a balanced budget to the board. And that's what we want to do for next year. We're going to continue to try to strive for that. I think this is our budget strategy for 26-27. We're going to evaluate our instructional investments to ensure outcomes are in line with those targets. And we're going to use data to make financial decisions. And of course, one of the goals that we've had is to finalize a 3 to 5 year financial plan so that we look beyond the biennium to see what is coming in the future to make sure that we position the district in order for us to continue to operate strategically and also in a good financial position as called for in our priority 4, which is operational efficiency. And I highlighted a quote here from Dr. Molinar that every financial decision has to be rigorously assessed to ensure alignment with our strategic priorities while honoring the investment made by our taxpayers. And that's our commitment that we need to continue to make sure that we are aligned and that our budget is aligned. And also we want to bring forward a balanced budget. Our debt service fund here, we took off the planned defeasance for 25-26. We pulled that off the table because we would potentially lose state aid. And as you can see, our state aid right now is $14,527,000. So we'll make sure that we continue to receive that. Why? Because that lowers the cost for our taxpayers it lowers our property tax rate and lowers the amount of money that we need from property taxes. So our estimated revenue is $149,722,000, and our debt service requirements for 25-26 is $149,722,000, so a balanced budget. Our fund balance remains strong at $47,452. The impact of SB4 on Fort Worth ISD, as I indicated just now, is that modification of the additional state aid for homestead exemption on facilities. It would reduce it by any amount over state aid plus local collections for the required debt service. So basically disincentivizes defeasance. We were just going to put a pause on that, although it is something that would ultimately lower the cost of borrowing. It's just in the short term, we would lose the $14.5 million. So what that does too is it causes some volatility with regards to our tax rate. So without the defeasance, our tax rate for 25-26 is more than likely going to drop by 3.77 cents. But then in 26-27, it may increase by 5.22 cents to 29.02. But that all depends on how much we grow, how much our assessed valuation occurs. Our model is based on 2%, and it's also predicated on issuing the remaining $461 million in January 2027. Again, that's all predicated on the work that's done by the CIP team, so that we just look to see what are our cash flow needs, and then should we issue the remaining amount. So here, I'm going to caution again, we are not passing a tax rate tonight. We are just asking you to pass the budget. But this is something that we want to present to you, just for you all to keep in mind as you move forward. So we think we're going to lose about 3.15 cents on the M&O side due to the increase in the tax rate, in the maximum compressed rate due to compression. 3.1 cents going from 78.69 to 75.54. And then our interest in sinking, our INS, we propose to go from 2755 to 2378. So overall, a reduction of almost 7 cents off the tax rate. And so that would be significant for taxpayers. And if the homestead exemption passes from 100,000 to 140,000, that would even be more. It would be significant for taxpayers. On the food services fund, we are bringing forward a budget of $46,758,000 revenues and expenditures. This is a slight change. We did not incorporate the internal salaries last meeting, so it did go up quite a bit. So that's why you may be looking at this and saying, why is there such a big change? But this budget includes the contracted services, plus it does also include our internal employees that we have on our payroll rolls. So here, again, another balanced budget, $46.7 million of revenue and $46.7 million of appropriations. So again, quick look at our combined budgets of $1,066,212,639. Here it is presented again by fund and function. Quick reminder of our budget and tax rate adoption, our key deadlines. You can see them there. The deadline to adopt a budget is no later than June 30th. And then our TEA property value survey to determine our maximum compressed rate comes in from July 18th through August 1st. We have required to publish a notice 10 days before the meeting when we adopt, and we hope to bring the tax rate to all of you at the August 2025 board meeting. So our recommendation is that you adopt the budgets for the general fund, for the general fund, the debt service fund, and the food service fund as presented. So with that, I'll stop there if there is any questions that you might have.
Trustees, thank you for this report. Trustees, are there any comments or questions? Trustee Dar?
Thank you for this very thorough report. I appreciate it. On slide 10,
Yes.
so we are not adopting a compensation package tonight, correct?
Correct. I'm sorry, you're not adopting the budget for the compensation. It will come later.
I'm sorry, say that last part?
So the proposal is that you do adopt the compensation, and we'll come back with a budget amendment to incorporate those changes.
So we are either adopting or not adopting a budget and a compensation package this evening.
So you're adopting the budget, but the budget currently does not include the compensation numbers in it. We'll come back with a budget amendment in July or August to incorporate those changes.
Okay.
Okay?
So on slide 10, a couple questions you mentioned that instruction and instruction-related services, the total is 58.32% of our spending is on instruction and instruction-related services. What was it last year? Do you know those numbers?
It was definitely less than 2%, 2% difference, 56 something,
Okay.
56%.
So estimated about 56%. And then what about the administrative services? Those, I'm assuming that includes the superintendent, the superintendent's cabinet, central administration, non-campus administrators, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Last year, we adopted, and it was 3.17%, and this year it's 2.88%.
So we're spending less
Yes.
proportionately on non-school administration. Okay, what are some examples of support services that are non-student based?
So that particular support services, non-student based, comprises of the functions 50s that are labeled 50. So that would be 51, plant maintenance and operations, all of your maintenance and custodial support. 52 is security and monitoring services, so our campus monitors, safety and security expenses there. And then 53 are data processing services, which would be our technology staff and any technology equipment that's related to administration.
Okay. And then how about support services for students?
So
Are those our
support-
30s?
So support services for staff is the 30 series, so it would be 31, functions 31 through 36, which would be guidance and counseling, social work, health services, student transportation, food services, and athletic and co-curricular, extracurricular activities, which is primarily athletics.
Okay. On slide 20, we have this mathematical formula about if you've been a teacher for 3 or 4 years, then you're getting a $2,500 raise, and a teacher with more or 5 or more years of experience, they get a $5,000 raise, and that is per House Bill 2. So what happens in 2026-27 if I have 2 years of teaching experience right now, but then next year I'll have 3 years of teaching experience? Well, then do I then get a $2,500 increase? Does this grow with our teachers, or is this something that the lucky ones are getting this year?
So the $2,500 and the $5,000 is embedded into our salary schedule. I know that for 26, 27, that the state is funding that amount of money, so we have built it into the salary schedule. If you recall, every salary schedule is based on is adopted annually, so it's only for that respective year. So we would have to adopt in 26, 27 and forward salary schedules that continue to incorporate that amount of money.
So, but in addition to these allotments, this $2,500, $5,000 increase, we're also paying first-year beginning teachers more per the law, correct?
So there is no, just maybe Chief Bailey can correct me, but there was no funding provision for anyone from 0 to 2 years. So there was no requirement, as there is here, the compensation increase. However, I know that we are moving our first step from $63,000 to $64,500 at 0 entry. So this year, a brand-new teacher with 0 years of experience would come in at $63,000. In 25, 26, someone with 0 experience would start at $64,500. And then the salary schedule is built off that $64,500. Anyone who is who goes from years 2 to 3 will receive a flat $25 or a minimum of $2,500. Anyone who is moving from the 4th year to the 5th year on the salary schedule will receive $5,000 flat. Okay?
Just for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, once we embed it in our salary schedule, it's not been a practice, or for as long as I've been here, that we have adopted a salary schedule that we decrease the steps for our teachers after a school year.
Well, I would not support that, so I'm glad to hear
I just
that.
want to make sure our friends at home understand that when we gave the response about would we see someone move from that 5,000, as you go through the steps, it's already built in to that salary schedule, so you'll see our salary schedule change. The difference with the new teacher is to make sure we're being able to recruit teachers, and we are trying to not only match, but increase our starting salaries with our competing districts in the Metroplex.
Okay. I guess my overall concern is, well, first of all, it's all very new. We're all trying to absorb this, and we're trying to make sense of it. We're trying to figure it out, and there's lots of moving parts. And I understand that, and I appreciate your due diligence to the details, because the details in this situation are significant and important. I guess I just worry a lot about sustainability. And not just for Fort Worth ISD, but for public education in general, because we are watching, I mean, every night you see on the news, somebody else has passed a deficit, another school district has passed a deficit budget. And just recently, Dallas passed a $104 million deficit budget. And that's concerning to me, because as we also don't know, at least my understanding is that the legislature is going to continue to fund the $2,500, $5,000, $8,000 bumps that we received this year. There's going to be another legislative session in 2 years that will yield its own set of blessings, challenges, however you want to look at them. I guess my concern is sustainability. It's not a question, it's a comment, it's a concern. And I tell people, they're like, Ann, why do you do this? And I say, well, to serve on a school board, you have to be a little bit crazy and a whole lot passionate about public education. And I'm incredibly passionate about public education and the role that it plays in our society. And it makes me nervous when we've got so many districts that are having to pass deficit budgets, of which Fort Worth ISD falls into that same category. Because I want to pay every teacher as much as we can, and I want to pay every counselor as much as we can, and I want to pay every bus driver as much as we can, because they are people and they are important, and they are valued and valuable. So I will get off my soapbox. Thank you for listening.
Trustee Luobanos.
Thank you, President Martinez, and thank you for this report. On page 12,
Yes.
we have we've been declining from the average days and the fund balance from 150 to 135, coming up to 118. In 2 more years, we'll be below that 190, that 90 days at this rate. What should we be doing? We're not getting any more money, and at this rate, we'll be below that 90-day recommendation.
Yeah, and I've really given that a lot of thought. Thank you so much for that question. I think that for, my standpoint is the amount of money that the gap, the 3.8% of budget, is that something that we could look at cutting? And that's why we're gonna really need to continue to look at our spending to see how we can continue to bring that in line with where we need to be, what is our balance point. And there's a lot of things that are in that can be done. We spend a lot of money on people. 80 to 85% of our budget is people, and the other 15% is all of the other things associated with running a school district. So we have to make sure that all of our positions are looked at. Can we do more with less? Can we, just become more efficient? And I think we've been doing some of the things that need to be done. Our new ERP system, new budget strategic plan, looking at our master facilities plan, all of those different things. I don't think it's just going to be one thing. I think it's going to be a combination of things that will eventually get us to a balanced budget and just being more operationally efficient. But I know that's not necessarily an answer, but one of the things that I know coming from COVID and having to go through ESSER, this was our last year for ESSER money, was we were preparing for that. This was that fiscal cliff that people talked about, and that we've absorbed some of the positions into our budget. We did cut some positions. We've restructured positions. We went through another program change, which also reduced the cost of instruction. The other issue that I'm really concerned about is the federal dollars that are being looked at to be cut for next year. So that is we're going to have to look at that again. That could potentially be a reduction in service. There are a lot of school districts that are addressing it by cutting their music programs, their fine arts programs. They're reducing the amount of services that they're providing. And so those are the things that we have really fought against, to try to not reduce those programs, but to try to look in other places. You saw, I think Trustee Dar brought up the administration costs. We've looked at that and tried to reduce the administrative costs, so that would be an area, and we could shift more dollars into the classroom, which we have done by some of the things that we have done. So I think that the alignment to our strategic plan is really going to get us to where we need to be. But I am very cautious, and I know Dr. Molinar and I have had conversations about where we need to be and what the future looks for us as we move forward with our budgets in the future. And that's one of the things that I also put up there is that we're also going to look to doing a 3 to 5 year financial plan. See what does it look like so that we can have those in-depth conversations, certainly at the Finance Committee, but then bringing those forward so that we can have those discussions as to what we need to do and how we need to move forward as a district.
Thank you.
And I just want to add on that, I hear what you're saying about revenue, and I agree with that, but there are things we can do as a district, and that is really increasing our achievement scores and our ratings, bringing students back into our districts who have choices, but we want them to choose us. And with that comes the academic challenges that we must face and we have to address. And you see that embedded in this 25-26 budget that we're asking to adopt, and it is a deficit budget, but we need to implement some things aggressively and bold. We need to look at some school models that other districts are doing and some scheduling that we need to do. We can be more efficient in scheduling, but we have to address our student achievement. That will bring revenue back into this district because it will bring students back into our district as well. We need our students to come to school every day. Every day. And it's not just because it's ADA and that's revenue. It's because if they're not here, they're not learning. And we need them in their seats. And that will increase revenue as well and enrollment. In addition to that, we must address discipline and stop suspending our students. Get control of the discipline, teachers. I agree with you, so you can teach. But when we are suspending students over and over 2-3 days every single time, they're not learning, they're not engaged, they're not in school, and we also are losing funding at that point as well. So there are ways to address how we can also increase our revenue on a daily basis. Our fine arts programs are fantastic. We spend one board meeting a month celebrating our achievements of our students here in this district. We must protect those things that our students want to come to school for, those other activities, athletics, fine arts, and clubs. So we are protecting them. And we don't want to have to cut those things. If anything, that's what you increase. That brings kids into our district. They want to be here every day, makes them come every day. So we've got to be creative. Next year's budget cycle will be starting even earlier, even though we actually are even talking about next year. We've also been working with some other districts on how they do more community input, go out in the community, meet our stakeholders where they're at, and get their ideas as well. Protecting our classroom is our #1 priority, as well as increasing student achievement in this district.
Thank you. And last question on this page 14, 15. Have we looked into another healthcare provider besides TRS? I mean, it's insane the amount of money that an employee should, I mean, the amount of money that it's costing us to provide health insurance for the employees. I mean, looking at $39 million, $25 to $30 million.
We have done analysis on our data that we have received from TRS to do a comparison of what our premiums are specifically versus the claims that have been submitted. And so at this point in time, we are benefiting, if you will, from participating in the TRS plan. Our premiums do not cover our current costs from our employees. And so we'll continue to monitor that. I think this would be the third measurement time that we've done that. We do hire an outside consultant that helps us and asks on an annual basis, semi-annual basis, for the data from TRS, and we do that analysis. And I'm happy to share that analysis with the board.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you. Are there any anticipated special sessions?
I have not heard any special sessions.
Okay, good, because I'd hate to pass the budget tonight and then something changes. Thank you.
Just to, yesterday, we participated in a legislative update. There are some of our bills that have been signed that they don't have the rules written yet. So those are a lot of things we are waiting on. We're not necessarily going to be a budget impact, but implementation impact that we are waiting on. So we'll want to keep everyone updated on those. There's a lot still in play that TEA as well as Austin has not finalized with exactly implementation rules yet.
Right.
Trustee Phillips?
Thank you, President Martinez. Thank you for your work on this, Carmen. I know how much time and effort you and your team has to put into creating all of this and getting all this done. My question is more for Dr. Molinar. This is your first budget of your tenure, right? You come in and budget was already going and you were keeping operations going. But now that this is your show, this is your budget that you're going into, just like to hear some of your thoughts on where we are and what the adoption of this will look like as you steward us forward for this next year.
So I'm going to do a twofold. I'm very proud of the amount of resources and budget we have put back into the schools and the classrooms. I'm very excited about that part of our budget because I believe that is truly where our work is each and every day, is to support our campuses. I'm so happy that Austin is recognizing the importance of the profession of educators and teachers. I hear Ms. Motley and our other counselors and the concerns and other support staff not receiving the same compensation increases. They have been very explicit of their definition and how we can spend the money. Where I'm grateful for what we have received, increases from Austin, but not sure if everyone understands with the requirements of the spending of the revenue that we have received. But we are making sure that every requirement that we have received still supports our campuses and our classrooms and our students. Definitely, we always like to have more money and be able to pay our staff, everyone from our custodial staff to, even our administrators who are on those campuses every day at 7 a.m. until 7 at night, working football games, basketball games, at every fine arts event. But I believe in what our priorities are. I believe in our district strategic plan. And I believe that we have really taken the time to align our budget to the strategic plan. And that's what I'm most excited about. I've been here 26 years. We've not had a district strategic plan in about 10 years almost. And so it was refreshing to have the strategic plan to really align our budget. And we're only going to get stronger and get better. And when we see revenue coming in and we see ways to reallocate some funds, it will always be aligned with that strategic plan. And that's really my promise to this board and to our stakeholders. When we see ways that we can give back to the classroom, that's what we're going to do. And we're all committed to that around the table.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Dr. Molinar. Thank you, President Martinez.
Trustee Lynch?
No, I just wanted to make a couple comments. Carmen, Dr. Molinar, your whole team, I appreciate all the work you guys put into this. I know it was a tremendous amount of work and a lot to try to figure out. And I think a couple of things I want to say. The biggest thing that we can control is the product that we put out there. And I think with some of the changes we made in leadership, that is the biggest thing is student outcomes and getting families and kids excited to want to come to Fort Worth ISD. When I look at some of the things we can address around enrollment, we got to have a great product. So people want to be here and don't want to be anywhere else. And I think we're absolutely moving in the right direction. And as we looked at this pretty hard, I think, Carmen, some of the things from a finance committee standpoint and some of the meetings we've had, obviously recapture is a big number that, there's things that we can do to address that and look at that. And I think that's something we have to continue to look at and figure out. I want to commend the board. We made a lot of tough decisions, and I know collectively as a district we did, but it's not easy to close campuses. But as we look at some of the things that are big drivers of spending money and how do we impact kids, those are some tough decisions that were made this spring, and I think those are ones that we're going to have to continue to look at. To impact kids, we're going to have to be bold and courageous, and we can't do it the way we've always done it. So we're going to have to look at some of those things. And on AL, I agree with you. It gives me a little bit of heartburn. We got probably less than 2 years as current trajectory and fund balance. So we're going to have to look at this really hard this year to figure out how do we get to a place of sustainability. I just want to offer my support and impacting kids and how we're looking at this, but we're gonna have to look at things really hard. And I like the idea of coming up with a 5-year plan to make sure we can be solvent moving forward and impact kids. So thank you.
Trustee Jackson?
Thank you, President Martinez. Dr. Molinar, this one's for you. You made me think a little bit about ADA, and we're predicating the budget on a revenue stream of 90.5% ADA. That's correct?
Correct.
Can we look at campuses, or have you guys looked at campuses and when they increase ADA, perhaps giving them a rebate or an award system? Because it is most important for our students to be at school, and that was very refreshing to hear you say, and I know we all believe that. But also, it takes extra work to get kids to school. So if you could just maybe address that, is there something we can do, and how can we help?
So we do have, our high school principals had some great ideas. It's different for each level because your high school principals will tell you the students drive their ADA. Our elementary and somewhat of our middle school, our parents drive that ADA. So you have to approach it differently. It's like everything, one size does not work all. Ms. Kelly talked about parent engagement, literacy nights, how to engage our parents. That's also is important when we talk about attendance and ADA, is in bringing our parents into that partnership piece, engaging them not only in activities and events, but also their child's education and the importance of that. So we're planning on discussing that, but then I'm also going to be doing some goal setting with each campus around not only their ADA, but their chronic absenteeism and their mobility rates. I believe when we set individual goals that people work towards them, just like our students, we see our campuses who do student goal setting and are very transparent with that goal setting, that our students, they know their goals, they drive to meet those goals, and I believe our principals will also do that. Our family engagement specialists, we have started to redesign some of their work as well to focus on what that attendance looks like and that engagement and partnership. So we do have some plans around that, and we'll be releasing that to our campuses as well. But then it's also, the state conversations, the enrollment conversations. It's just not daily attendance, but when someone wants to make the choice to leave, it's pulling them in the office before they withdraw, or it's making that home visit and talking to that parent, asking them why. A lot of it's they didn't feel heard. Someone didn't take the time to listen to them. Lack of communication from the campus or the district level. And that goes back to being customer service based in our district. At central administration, we support our campuses. That's our role. And I'm very, very explicit and serious about that. And those who know me know that when it's not happening, I will call that department, or I'll say, you need to reach out and make that phone call yourself. And we'll continue to do that. It all goes back to people want to be somewhere where they feel wanted and where they feel comfortable. And we have to be the ones who model that and put that in place.
Thank you. I have one for you, Carmen. We talked about revenue streams, the delinquent tax collections, and the fact that we dropped the group that collects delinquent taxes, which we receive 100% of those dollars. We dropped them from 20% to 15%. Have we seen any change in the collections? And I know there are other factors.
I have not seen a drop, but I do want to, we just recently received the report for the third quarter of the year, and so I was going to wait until I received the full year to get a full cycle so that we can review that. So that's definitely on my radar to be able to do that.
Thank you. And I understand that 90% plus of those are corporations, businesses. They're not residential, so that would be interesting too for me if they're just floating off of this money. Since we do get 100% of the money, it's important.
I'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee
both of you.
Jones.
Trustee Dar.
Yes, can I have a follow-up question to Trustee Jackson's comments? When is that full year cycle complete? Is that August 31st? Is that, when can we expect this report so that we can compare the revenue that we've received as last year and this year?
It's on a fiscal year basis, so we would get July 1st through June 30th is the cycle that is measured.
So we should have that report sometime in July, I would
Sometime
assume?
in July or
Okay.
August.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Lynch?
I have one question, and Dr. Molinar, my question's around with some of the recent school decisions that were made. When can we expect to see kind of a report of how that might impact plant maintenance operations and some of the other things moving forward?
So this coming school year, 25-26, we have 2 campuses that are going through the consolidation. That will really be our baseline, that we'll be able to collect the efficiencies around that, not only with the cost of personnel, but then also we can start monitoring what does that mean for our utilities and maintenance. So we'll be able to get a baseline with those 2 campuses. The majority of our campuses for school consolidation are elementary, and the 2 that are impacted in 25-26 are also elementary. So we feel that will be the start. We currently have an idea when it comes to personnel, but we really want to look at it as a whole package. What is that when we put in all those different costs?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Want to give Trustee Bridges an opportunity? Any questions or comments?
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's actually falls in line with the question that Vice President Jackson asked. And I've been asking this question, seems like for the last couple of years that I've been on the board. When we talk about average daily attendance, how do we create some kind of incentive? Because we know that affects in terms of from a budgeting perspective, money that we get in, and that some kind of incentive is created on the campus level, because we know how that affects our budget on a long-term basis. And I don't think and maybe me, I don't think I've ever gotten the answer clear enough as to why isn't there more incentives towards that, and creating some kind of campaign that now that we've had to do some severe cuts and people who recognize that, I think you'll get people to lean in more. There's like, oh, wow, wait a minute. There's some things that we can do from the parents and our perspective and the school perspective. Something along that line.
Trustee Bridges, totally agree with you. I don't know which incentives, and I don't want to guess because the people who know the best are our campus administrators and teachers. They're going to be able to tell us and support staff what works for each level. And it could look different at each campus too. We have some campuses that have very, very strong attendance and do their own internal, what we call branding around attendance. Actually, Trustee Phillips and I were with some young students a few weeks ago, and it was surprising. It was a nice surprise that high school students, they were like, yeah, attendance matters. We know your slogan. And I was like, huh, okay, who would have thought? But we have to utilize our students as well. They're the ones who can be game changers for us. So how do we involve them? And this is something you and I have talked about multiple times. Like, how do we promote them through social media platforms? And how do they work with their peers with the importance of coming to school? What incentives do they want? So we need their voice in that. So we will do that. It's definitely not too late. And we do have trend data that we see where our attendance actually increases, but then decreases throughout the year. So sometimes it's not something you do all year because that's not really works every time. People get fatigued with surveys, they get fatigued with campaigns. So how do we use that trend data and say, we know around the second semester we see a decrease. We know right in between that November, December, we see a decrease. And then we had a great idea, and I believe Trustee Lynch was in the room, on a PEAM snapshot day. Like, as a district, we should do a huge attendance incentive. That's the most important because that drives our snapshot the last Friday in October, drives so many funding sources as well as data sources. We need kids here on that day. So I believe it's being strategic about just not a year-long approach, but how do we take that trend data and really try to be strategic about it in addition to a campaign as well.
One more real quick. Have we looked outside at maybe other districts that's similar to ours? Maybe there's some approaches that they're using that we haven't used to see maybe how that would work with our district.
Yes, sir. I hear you. Yes. I'm not afraid to ask for help, believe me, and ask for ideas. So yes, definitely.
Thank you.
I have one just follow-up question around attendance. Have we done any audit or examined how transportation has impacted attendance at all?
That's a great question. We have not done an official audit on that. Now, we can definitely look at, we don't count students tardy who have transportation routes. Now, what we can do, and what we are doing, because it is part of our strategic plan when we're looking at efficiencies of how many of our bus routes are on time for our campuses, so we will continue that as well. But then what we need to do is break down our attendance data with our students who are bus riders, who are our schools of choice, our programs of choice, versus our walkers. But then also our safety and security team, they monitor our weather days as well. So I do believe there's a lot of different ways that we could start looking at factors that go into attendance. So thank you for that question and a great strategic idea for looking at our data.
All right, any last questions, trustees? All right, thank you for your questions and comments. We are now at the public hearing to discuss the 2025-2026 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Services Fund. The public hearing is now called to order. I will turn it over to Dr. Molnar.
I'll turn it back over to Carmen.
Thank you so much. This is the public hearing and public comment to discuss the budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service, and Child Nutrition Fund. According to state law, under Texas Education Code Section 44.0041, the district is required to post a summary of the budget on the district website at the same time it publishes the notice in the newspaper. And that notice went up on the newspaper on May 30th, 2025, and there was a corresponding copy of the adopted budget at the same time. It is located at the very bottom of our webpage. If you'll scroll down to the very bottom of the page, and you will be able to see the link for the proposed budget. The public notice provides notice of this meeting to discuss the budget and the proposed tax rate. Again, keep in mind, we're going to go ahead and post the same a similar notice when we go to approve the tax rate once we get all of the information. But this notice informs the public that the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the budget that will ultimately determine that tax rate to be adopted. And certainly, it encourages public participation in the budget adoption process. So with that, President Martinez, I'll turn it back to you for you to receive any public comment on the budget. And up there, I just left the slide related to the combined expenditure budgets.
At this time, we will hear from those who requested to speak concerning the 2025-2026 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Services Fund. I don't think we had anyone. We didn't have any speakers signed up. So we will, are there any questions or comments from the trustees? No questions? All right, well, thank you all. That concludes the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. And next on the agenda is the superintendent report. And I will turn it over once again to Dr. Molinar.
Thank you. Gotta find my clicker. Okay, here we go. I misplaced it. So this evening, I would like to bring to you our early results around our 2025 EOC that were publicly released today. But then in addition to that, I have chosen to also share our early results, unofficial results for our 3 through 8 star results that we have received. These are unofficial. They have not been released to the public, the 3 through 8, only our end of the year course exams, EOC. I should explain what EOC stands for. Those have only been released publicly, and then today we've received the state scores as well. So we were able to take a first look at comparison across the state in accordance to our comparison with the state standard. I'm choosing to share our early results around our 3 through 8 to show you the importance of the plans we have already put in place for 25-26. When we're asking you to adopt a budget, a lot of those plans have already been rolled into that, so I wanted you to see the importance of those plans. But then also show you the urgency of what we're doing this summer, and then the implementation into 25-26 school year as well. Just a reminder, these are early results. They are not used to project our accountability ratings. There's a lot more that goes into accountability ratings. You have to look at growth. You look at CCMR data, that is lagging data. These are just results, achievement, how we're looking at our students, where we're at, but we also are able to drill down by grade level all the way down into a classroom by teacher to see what support is needed at a campus, but then also to look at our curriculum and implementation of our instructional practices. But these are not, we're not using these to drive what our accountability ratings are. So what are early results? They really are just a file and at student level data that we do get because we are in middle of summer school. So it helps us to make sure that we're capturing our students to do summer extended learning. It's also especially important for our high school EOC students around retesters, that we make sure we have all of our retesters joining in our summer learning program for our high school level that actually started this week as well, goes into July. Our retesters will have the opportunity for the EOC and the high school level to do retesting. Just also a reminder that our retesters do not count, and our summer 2025 retesters do not count in our accountability ratings. However, you'll see them in our taper report when it's released in December. But our 2024 retesters from last summer are counted in our accountability rating for 2025. These results that we're going to see tonight do not include our STAR alternate test. These are what we call very dirty data. We don't have all of our data in from our other assessments like our STAR alt. And also the PEAMS rules are not applied. We do our own PEAMS in district, and that's how we clean our data up, which student counts for us, who was here on our snapshot date, what student counts from each campus. We get those files later on from TEA. However, we do, as in Fort Worth ISD, our assessment accountability team start trying to come up with preliminary numbers. But this is what we call very dirty data from a state file, and that we'll see it all cleaned up later on those release dates. Everything can differ just by a little bit, but we're very confident in the percentages that you'll see. And then we'll have our final percentage rates once the state applies all the PEAMS. The key dates to remember, of course, is today, and TEA announced their public data late yesterday, and then early this morning, the files were dropped for public notice for all of our end of the course year exams for our high school students, as well as some of our 8th grade students who engage in our Algebra 1, our biology, as well as our English 1 testing. So we'll definitely have more data as we continue throughout the summer and then, of course, into August. So you'll see here, this is our very early, and you'll see unofficial on there. Other districts have not even released these yet. But I have vowed to our stakeholders, our city, and our board, when I became interim in October, to be very transparent of our scores. And if we have them, we need to talk about them, we need to look at them, and we need to plan in accordance to them. And we have to have action steps to address them. So I did not want to wait to release these unofficial results and for the early 3 through 5. You'll see on this chart, we do not have state scores because those have not been released yet. The state have not released their scores. This is only Fort Worth ISD. So the comparison where you see 24, 25 is just internal data that we're comparing at this time. On the June 24th meeting, I'll dig a lot deeper as we are able to look at our subgroups. We're able to have our data, what we call clean data. We'll put our PEAMS and make sure we're able to look at our subgroups. And we'll also be able to share our campus highlights at that time as well. You'll see that there's a lot more green than we see pink. So we're very excited about the initial early results. However, we are definitely not anywhere near where we want to be for any student in this district and as a district as a whole. But this does show that the actions that we did put in place this school year by putting adults in front of students and redesigning our campus instructional coaches to work with small groups, the professional learning and development that we provided to our assistant principals, our principals, with our leading and learning team, with putting a focus on instruction and data. We saw results when we just really put those things in place in that second semester. 3rd grade reading, we know, is a House Bill 3 goal that we're required to report out as a board. And you'll see that's also in our district strategic plan, since it is required by the state. When we're looking at the approaches, meets, and masters, just as a reminder, and you'll see that on the bottom of this page, these are cumulative, and that means the approaches level includes our students at the meets and masters, and then of course the meets has the masters embedded into it as well. We always want to address where we got our data source. So I'm saying this verbally so everyone hears that this is our TA early student level results that are very unofficial at this point. However, we do feel that they are, for us, enough of information how we continue going into the 25-26 school year. When we look at our 3rd grade reading, and I want to really start at the meets or higher, because to me that's what's important, because that's how the state rates us. And masters is really where we need to look at. That's when we say students have mastered that grade level content. You look at third grade reading, fourth grade reading, and fifth grade reading across the board, even approaches, meets, and masters, and we made gains. Percentage gains in the single digits are definitely at a district this size, and when you look at statistically how to make gains, percentage gains, and growth should be celebrated. And I do want to recognize our teachers, our counselors, our principals, assistant principals, support staff, as well as our support team and central administration for the work around this. You'll see major gains in that meets or higher, 5%, 6%, and 5% across the reading. And then I look at our masters 4, 3, and 2. Definitely, as we say, there's a lot more room to grow, but we definitely show where some of the changes we made, we see improvement in that. We know area math was also a extreme concern for us. Fifth grade math is still giving us some struggle, and we know that. And we thank you, board. You adopted a new curriculum at the May board meeting that will be closely aligned to the state standards, as well as STAR embedded questions and formatting that will help us as we redesign our math. And then we look at our science, where we're seeing gains at our approaches. We stayed stagnant at the meets, but we saw our masters increase by 1 percentage point as well. When you go to the next slide, this probably looks a little familiar to you. We're trying to get us back to how we're measuring our targets, because this is our first opportunity to look at our district strategic plan around that goal 1.1. As I said, that's required by the state, and that's early literacy, and the increase in the percentage of grade 3 students at meets grade level or above. Our target that we adopted as a board and as a district was a 33% target. And what you see is we're on track, where we're actually are at 37%. That was a question, I believe it was Dr. Rodriguez asked about setting our targets and what happens if we not only meet but increase those targets. So this is a great problem to have as a team of 10. We need to decide what's our new targets around our 1.1 to make sure that we exceed that goal in 2026 at 36%. Going on to 1.2 in the early math as well, our target was 32%. And you see we exceeded that target at 34% in these early results. Very excited about that. We know our target for next year in 2026 is 36%. We believe with that new instructional planning calendar and framework and the redesign, that we will not only meet that target in 2026, but we will exceed that target. And then, of course, the implementation of a new adoption. These are our 6 through 8 results as well. And that's when you'll see our grades 6, 7, and 8 reading, math, and of course we add in addition to science for 8th grade, we add in social studies. Once again, you do see a lot of green. We do see some pink where we had dropped a percentage or two or stayed stagnant in those areas. This told us that we were correct in the redesign of double blocking our math and reading in middle school. That 45 minutes to 90 minutes every day. This is why we did it. We knew we needed to do it, and the results show us that we are on the right track with not only the redesign and the new adoption of our math curriculum, but providing our students with double the amount of literacy in math. So if we made these gains in a 45-minute block, what can we do in that 90-minute block? We're not only do have the opportunity to reteach our students in a tier 2, tier 3 setting, but we're also able to accelerate our students. I'm going to take you all the way over to the right-hand side under the purple, under the masters. 6th grade reading, we increased masters 4%. That is hard to do when we already knew what our math scores were in 5th grade. But our teachers were able to increase our masters at 4%. When we double block and we take those students who are already achieving at a meets level, and we're able to not only accelerate them, but give them double time every single day in that middle school setting with their teacher, with aligned resources, strong expectations, and support. This is what we can do. We can just go through the roof for our students. And this is the work of our teachers. So we need to celebrate our teachers, and they're not here. They're on a much-deserved summer break. And this is the worst part about getting our scores right now, is they're not here to celebrate with us. Tomorrow, I have an email already to be able to send out to the faculty and the staff on our campuses as well as district-wide to thank them for all their hard work, but then also remind them we still have a long way to go, but we're going to support each other as we continue on this journey together as well. You'll see, I'm going to go down to 8th grade science. We're really seeing our science move. Science is so related to literacy in addition to math. If you are not able to read, you're not able to excel in science. So as we see our literacy scores and our math scores increase, we're also going to see our science and our scores increase. And you're going to see that in some of our biology. And that is where our students, we talk about fine arts, we talk about athletics, we talk about student engagement and hands-on. Students love science. Like, I was not a science kid, but I liked science class because I got to move, I got to do something with my hands, you get to learn something different, and you're doing hands-on activities. And we need to make sure we have a curriculum that supports that as well in our elementary as well as our middle school area. And then our social studies, very stagnant across the board there with a little bit of increase in the masters. But we know social studies is not just content, it's comprehension, it's reading. So when we're addressing our literacy issue, we really are addressing our social studies issue. And then you'll see our U.S. history as well in our EOCs in a few minutes. This slide, this is the publicly released data today that was released by TEA. You'll see that also show the state scores there because we were able to receive state scores to do a comparison. So different from our early results of 3 through 8, where we were just comparing last year to this year internally, you'll see that we included our state scores that came out officially today as well. Definitely areas in our algebra that we knew. We saw our 7th grade and 8th grade math scores last year, so we knew algebra and our EOCs in our high school was going to be a struggle for us this year. We did have approaches that dropped 11%, and the state overall went down 3% as well. Where we need to increase, we prefer we increase, and we don't ever want the state to decrease, but now our gap has widened at that approaches level. However, we saw where at our meets and masters, we do see some gains there at 4% and 2%, so we know it can be done. When we're able to show you the highlights of some of our campuses around algebra, I really cannot wait to June 24th to really highlight some of our high school campuses who just shined in algebra. And it's, some of our campuses we normally don't see that are showing gains. So we'll be excited to share that on the next June meeting. We look at our biology that we just discussed, stagnant in that approaches level, 11% change when you look at the meets. We are still below state standard. They went up 5 and we went up 11, but that just shows that we are starting to close some of that gap there for the meets, as well as the increase in our masters as well. Still have a long way to go. We're not saying we don't. These are, like we said, we're not satisfied with these, but we are satisfied that we're seeing an increase as we're moving forward as well. So we talk about new math adoption in elementary, and we have a new math adoption when we're talking about in high school. And this will help us address, and that new math adoption is going to be more aligned to the TEKS, a stronger correlation, the rewrite of our curriculum framework, also our demonstration and learning, we call our DOLs. The team has been working really hard, and some of them were with me yesterday. We talked about how we do STAR embedded, STAR design demonstrations of learning. Our students need to see how it's worded. How is it written? And when we're assessing that first teach, are they mastering that DOL? And if they're not, how are we taking that in that tier 2 and tier 3 instruction? We talk so much about elementary, now we're talking about middle school. High school has the same expectations. And I was with our high school, I was with all the principals last Tuesday, but our high school principals were lucky because I specifically worked and walked over with them. The new instructional framework is a non-negotiable from K through 12. K through 12. Like, we have to do this as a district. Consistent implementation K through 12. For every grade level, every content area, the team is working very hard to redesign this. Now we have to put it in play, not only for our students, but for teachers to support them, to provide them with aligned resources and instructional expectations that meet the level of rigor of this assessment as well. Going into English 1 and English 2, we're starting to see our middle school scores catching up with us, our literacy. This is where we're starting to see the impact, is in our English 1 and our English 2. And when we look at the state, they dropped in every area as well. But just because they drop, we have so much gap to close, we need to increase. So when we're looking at this, what strategies are we specifically putting in place for our high schools? We're bringing back what we call IFL, Institute for Learning. This is really strong around what does that look like, not only in a professional learning community with our teachers, but what does that look like when you're in the classroom? How are we supporting that instructional delivery? But we're training our principals and our assistant principals on the Institute for Learning around IFL, where they go in, they're able to coach the teachers on the spot, give feedback, and show them, like, how can we support you? We need to do this more. How do we rehearse that even? Like, how do we go in? How do we deliver that instructional practice? But then when we're in the professional learning communities, what data are we looking at as well? And how are we making this more student-centered for our students? We know also our high school teachers, we got to bring them in. We got to bring them along. Our high school principals are targeting different teachers to come in and give us feedback on our curriculum redesign in the areas of English as well as algebra, where they're going to come in, they're going to give us impacts. I need them to buy into our instructional framework as well. So we're very excited that they'll be joining us with some feedback lessons on how we can become stronger. And this is the other part of data that can be transparent. It's not about, we always talk about a data should be a flashlight and not a hammer. We're able to drill all the way down to each classroom, because we know which teachers are teaching English 1, English 2, algebra. How can we support them? What do we need to do to support them in those classrooms as well? Then we're also looking at, Trustee Wallace, when you talked about asking other districts what they're doing around attendance and incentives, this is when we're asking other districts, like, what are you doing in your English 1 classes that's different? What are you doing in algebra that's different? And looking at those school designs, looking at our master schedule for our secondary, especially our high school. How can we look at some of the efficiencies in our schedule and make sure that we're taking advantage of maybe some of those periods that we can work with students in those small groups, but how are we addressing our retesters? Because remember, these are EOCs. Our students must pass these to graduate. So they have opportunities to retest. So what are we doing differently for our retesters? It doesn't mean you just say, hey, hope you do better that second time. You're 2 questions away. What are we providing to them? What specific strategies, content, what curriculum, what time within their schedule? And it's a balance. Secondary is a beast. How do you balance them receiving the credits they need to graduate by still giving them opportunities to retest, but then giving them the curriculum that they didn't master or even meet in the English 1 to be able to retest? All of that, a high school principal and their team and our team, we need to find ways in their schedule to support those retesters. And that's something that we have to be strategic about that we have not done. And we need to start doing that. We already have started looking at their schedule and say, here are ways we can recapture your retesters. And if that means before school, after school, during some of those free periods, Saturday schools. We used to run so many Saturday schools in this district. I mean, our high schools were like wide open on a Saturday. You walk by there, you thought it was a Thursday. We have to think, how can we get them back in? But then also when we talk about parent engagement and partnership, the parents need to understand why it's important for your students to come early, stay after. I need your help getting them here. Those of us that have had high school students, they're not the easiest ones to talk to, to get up and come in early, stay late, especially for additional instruction. We have to do things differently and just not hope they pass it the second time around as a retester. Going into our U.S. history, we talked a little bit about that when we were looking at our social studies. You know, this is related. You know, stayed very stagnant with only a 1% change. The state did drop as well. However, you know, like I said, like we need to surpass the state. So them dropping does not make me feel better. That we needed to actually take advantage of that and accelerate that. But U.S. history is connected to literacy. Being able to read is just not content. It's being able to comprehend the content and learn it. And then also, you of course, be able to be successful on that assessment, that EOC as well. So what does this mean? And this is a very quick, it's very important that I share you results. Plus, it's also to tell our story. We have some great things to celebrate, but we have a long way to go. But it is telling our story and someone else not telling it for us. And when we met with principals last Tuesday, sometimes, as I do here, I say things, and over we talk about being bold and aggressive leadership, bold and aggressive strategies, bold and aggressive implementation. And that's what 25 and 26 is all about, being bold and being aggressive for our students, adults working for our students. And that's really what's our plan to respond to the data we shared this evening. There's urgency, and everybody has it. There's not one person on this team that does not have urgency. Just like this board has urgency, and you see it in all of their action items they approve and their questions, and them asking us and pushing us to think differently, find answers outside of this district to help our students. Urgency has to come from every stakeholder, and a supportive sense of urgency as well. And if you have great ideas, this is when we say, if you want to help us, come volunteer and help us. I keep asking for volunteers. We have summer programming going on right now on our campuses, and I have asked and will continue to ask. Please give us an hour once a week to work with our students, and we will push you in the right places and make it comfortable for you. But this is something we need to do, not only as a district, but as a city for our students. We're going to continue to redirect and align our resources to support that instructional delivery. And just a reminder what some of that looks like. More adults working directly for students with student outcomes being monitored on a daily basis. And that includes our demonstration teachers that we did through our program change with our campus instructional coaches. Just a reminder that every elementary campus will receive an additional teacher, a demonstration teacher in the area of literacy. Every middle school campus, a literacy demonstration teacher and a math demonstration teacher. In high school, also receive 2 in literacy and math. These will be targeted around their campus data. If we need that demonstration teacher in English 1 with the retesters, that's where they'll be. That's who they'll be assigned to. The state has defined teacher very, very specifically of 4 hours working with students, at least 4 hours a day. Our demonstration teachers will be working with our most at-risk students, according to that campus data, 4 hours a day with these students. These are additional FTEs that our board has already approved in our budget. When we talk about allocation and budget reallocation and resources, this is an example of the budget that they will hopefully approve tonight. We need this for our students. Resources back on those campuses working directly with our students every day. Also, of course, is grade level support. We have our acceleration teachers that we are in the middle of hiring. We like to call them our SEAL team, that we now have our campus level data down to the grade level, down to the teacher. How do we go and help them? How do we support them? With that comes accountability, though. You have to implement the work and the alignment that it takes to meet the standards that the state has put forward. That does not mean we're taking the creativity from our teachers away, but our instructional delivery has to be aligned to the rigor of those standards. Our students will not perform well on those assessments, how they're measured. So how can we support that? But that's accountability from the principal all the way down to the classroom of implementation and consistent implementation of those expectations we're putting in place. High-quality instructional materials. We adopted our math, high-quality instructional materials. We're continuing with our Amplify for 25-26 school year. We're adding in that phonics component for our K through 2 grades, very excited about. We're increasing that dyslexia screener, especially in the 7th grade area, to look at additional screening to be able to identify our dyslexia students. That is a process. Dyslexia identification is a process. It is protected under the special education umbrella. We cannot just say a student has dyslexia. We must, and we're mandated by law to go through a certain process. And that includes having a team of professionals, qualified professionals, be able to diagnose that and then provide the instruction that's needed. We also will be implementing our new dyslexia program that we're very excited about for our elementary and our middle school areas as well. Updating what does that dyslexia program to address our dyslexia students look like. Our first teach, when we talk about, that's our most important teach. How do you protect that time? When we're looking at our instructional calendars, when we're looking at what does the school day look like, when we look at our secondary scheduling, our master scheduling, how are we making sure our students in our English 1 or Algebra 1 are not tardy to class? What's their schedule look like? Making sure that that block of time is protected across the grade levels, elementary, middle, and high as well. And then, of course, our demonstration of learning, our DOLs being aligned to the rigor, but then also providing really some of that STAR wording and formatting to make sure our students are being exposed to that without teaching to the test. You can do a great first teach without teaching to a test as well. And we're providing that in the new curriculum framework and in our instruction planning calendars. And then, of course, we talked about our reteach and our challenge. Like, how are we making sure we're intervening with those students? But then how are we taking more of those meets, and you saw the green under the meets, and pushing them to that purple and making sure they're masters? When they hit masters, we know that they have completed the content needed for that grade level, and they're ready for the next grade level as well. And just in closing, we want to share our parents will be receiving communication, and actually it hit the portal today that parents are able to access their students' STAR scores. So we'll be pushing that out, how our parents and our stakeholders who have students in our district can access their STAR scores. I want to thank Parent Shield publicly. Today they hosted a parent training, and this was one of the components of their parent training. And Trinace was on the phone very early this morning asking questions, and Miss Nancy Stixel, our Associate Superintendent, was making sure she had everything she needed. That's what we're talking about. We have a group of parents at Parent Shield who have parents on a Tuesday, June 10th, who are trying to access STAR scores. And they reached out to us and we were able to engage with them. That's the type of partnerships we need with every single parent. Because once they know and they can engage in their own child's student academic outcomes, that's how we're going to become stronger as Fort Worth Independent School District. So in closing, just a little bit of reminders before June 24th, urgency and execution is going to be the key for 25-26 for every team member across this district. And urgency can look different if you're a bus driver. Execution can look different if you're in payroll, if you're in technology, but it starts here in this building. How do we support our campuses so their focus is on students every single day in instruction? And let us take care of the rest, and we have to stop asking them to provide us information for how they need to do their job. We need to reverse that, and that's our goal as well. We talk about instruction, but how are we as central administration making sure we're addressing the needs on those campuses so they can support instructional delivery every single day and we protect that time? district-wide expectations, our demonstrations of learning, our reteach and challenge, and then, of course, attendance. We need our students here every single day in their seats, not just because of ADA and funding, but more importantly, because they can't learn if they're not here with us. And we're going to put out, like what Trustee Lynch said, putting out a great product. We're designing a great product for our teachers to be able to deliver. We need our students to be able to receive that product. We need them here every day as well. So this was just a quick report, and I know I don't usually do them on a workshop, but when we get results and when we get data, I don't want to sit on it, because if we're sitting on it, we're waiting to respond to it. But I'll take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Molinar. Trustees, any questions or comments? Trustee Lynch.
Dr. Molinar, I guess for explanation purposes more than anything, so when I look at the unofficial scores related to math, and I'm kind of want to compare third, fourth, and fifth grade, and then what feels a little bit like a cliff as we're moved to sixth and seventh grade. And can you speak, to me in my mind, math is one of those things that builds on itself. And so I guess, can we talk a little bit about what sixth grade math and maybe what seventh grade math is? Or explain that data somehow?
So, and there's definitely a lot better people, and Kim's sitting out there, so she probably will cringe as I'm saying some of this math. So feel free, Kim, to come to the podium to correct me. But when I'm looking at sixth and seventh grade math, you're looking at the results from our fifth grade math. So I'm going to use seventh grade because that was an issue we had last year, because you can look at our eighth grade scores when you look at, let's look at meets at eighth grade, 32%, or I'm sorry, 28% last year. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. Look at my seventh grade math. They were at 7% last year at meets. So 7% of our students in seventh grade math are our eighth grade math testers this year. So when you see that, we saw a 4% gain going across from our cohort of our seventh grade math that meets from 7%, and now we see them at 32%. So we're not comparison the cohort from a seventh to eighth grade. You're just seeing year to year where we are. So that is where we're now looking at our data, and that's our next step, is how we're cohorting those students. And we're not only looking at how do they do in 6, 7, and 8, because that's also how our accountability rating, because that's how you look at growth. Do those students meet their growth measure? And that is in our accountability rating. But then we're also looking at our MAP, middle of the year and end of the year projections, to see as our students were going through the year, how closely correlated was our MAP projections to our STAR projections for those students. Because we know they need to grow more than a year's growth. They have targets for our MAP, which is a norm reference, that we show very tight projections for STAR as well. And I'm gonna let Kim, you jump in, because I know you're cringing right now, because I'm not
cringing. I think you're doing a great job. I would just add that in that seventh grade, when you look at that seventh grade test, that is the first time that we see our tracks split off, because our honors and our regular sixth grade students all take the sixth grade STAR test. And then in the seventh grade test, our seventh grade on-level students go on to take the seventh grade test, and our honors sixth grade take the algebra test in seventh grade. So we see that division starting in our tracks. I would also say that this highlights the need for our instructional framework and the 90 minutes every day. So thank you for that.
Can you speak to then why eighth grade goes back up or appears to go back up?
It is the same students that are doing the seventh grade and the eighth grade. When you see that difference in what's going on third, fourth, and fifth grade, and then you move to the sixth, seventh, and eighth, third, fourth, and fifth build on themselves, and then sixth grade kind of starts over with some proportional reasoning, and so it's kind of a restart. And when we split those out, when we go seventh grade to eighth grade, it's just eighth grade is another iteration of what happened in seventh grade.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Dar.
Thank you. That you actually touched on, well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Dr. Molinar. Thank you for bringing these scores to us. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for being candid. Thank you for being honest. And yay, let's celebrate the wins and let's continue to do the work with urgency. You addressed one of my questions was with the middle school math, because that is where we start to see some of our top mathematicians who were buoying those scores in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade now taking accelerated classes, so they're not testing with their grade anymore. And in no way am I advocating for kids to not have those opportunities. I would rather take the hit in STAR scores than diminish the opportunities that kids have to accelerate and to achieve and that is one of the things that is drawing people to Fort Worth ISD, is the fact that their kids have opportunities to participate in accelerated learning opportunities like that. However, when we look at these scores, so you said that the 6th graders are all, no matter what, they're all taking the 6th grade test, even if they're taking a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math class?
Those kids that are taking the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math class, yes, are taking the 8th grade test. So that is a very, very small percentage of our students. Right now, though, going into the 25-26 school year, the top 50% of our students are going to be in that honors class.
50?
50.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. 50%.
Okay. Okay. And so when they take that algebra test in 7th grade, do those algebra results show up with the other algebra results, even though they're not in that school? So
yes.
Do they show up? Are they accredited to the school where they are learning, the middle school where they're learning? Or are those scores accredited to the high school where they will attend in that pyramid? Does that make sense?
Yes, those scores go to the middle school where they're learning.
Okay. And they factor into these scores that we're looking at as far as like the algebra scores that we saw?
Yes. So we report by test.
Okay.
And that algebra includes every student that took that algebra test across our district.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? I have a question. On the, or when we can expect to see the official results, will we see, I know you said we'll see the breakdown of our student groups. Will we also see the comparison to the state?
Yes, well, on the June 17th public release is when we'll get our state scores and we'll know what their cut scores were. Yeah, yes. So that's June 24th. I'll share where we are in comparison to the state.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Then moving on, the time is 7:29 p.m. The date is Tuesday, June 10th, 2027. We will now recess and reconvene for executive session as authorized by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code under Sections 551.071, 072, 074, and 076.
feeling down, wanna come my way, gonna lift you up. Let me hear you say, yeah, we're living on love. 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 Oh, oh, we're gonna take you higher. Oh, oh, we're gonna lift you up. Oh, oh, we're gonna take you higher. Oh,
In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:31 PM with the quorum present, recessed open session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, and now reconvenes open session at 8:41 PM with the quorum present. We will now move to action items. Action item 8A, consider and take action to approve the hiring for Executive Director of Literacy. Do I have a motion? Trustee Jackson?
So moved.
Have a second? Second. Trustee Dar. Any discussion? Please move to voting. Trustee Bridges?
Yes.
Yes. So we have 8-1, motion passes. Dr. Muller, would you like to introduce our new personnel?
Sure, I would like to introduce which she's already currently with us, our new executive director for literacy, Mary Jane Bowman. We're just super excited that you are staying with us. She has been instrumental leading the work with the redesign of our literacy framework, instruction planning calendar. She will also have MTSS and dyslexia reporting to her under the new structure. But thank you and congratulations. She's now a doctoral candidate with A&M officially, so she'll also be completing that. So thank you, Ms. Bowman, and please stand up and share any words at this time. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Now we are at 2, consider and take action to approve the hiring for Chief of Schools. Do I have a motion? Laura Reynolds, do I have a second? Second. Jackson, any discussion? Please move to voting. Trustee Bridges?
Yes.
All right, we have 8-1, motion passes. Dr. Molinar, would you like to introduce?
Yes, I'd like to introduce back to Fort Worth Independent School District, Dr. Priscilla Dilley. Dr. Dilley is currently the senior officer with Texas Wesleyan, which is our partnership for our Leadership Academy Networks, has a strong leadership history here as a principal, director, has served, has also been working as our redesign of our instructional planning calendars, helping Fort Worth Independent School District. She'll oversee the school side of our executive directors of leadership, our principals and supervisor campuses, with a strong implementation of our new expectations around our curriculum framework and our IPC, our instructional planning calendar. So we're happy she's back. So Dr. Dilley. Dr. Dilley, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you. Next item, we are at B, approve adoption of proposed 2025-2026 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service, and Child Nutrition Fund. Do I have a motion? Trustee Jackson, do I have a second? Trustee Dr. Ryan, any discussion? Please move to voting. Oh, sorry. Sure. Trustee Jackson?
Just want to ask that we be updated on those amendments or the amendment that will be coming on personnel in July on the budget, just to let us know ahead of time. Thanks.
All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, please move to voting. Trustee
Yes.
Bridges? Thank you.
Yes.
9-0, motion passes. Next item is C, approve compensation plan for the 2025-2026 school year. Do I have a motion? So moved. Trustee Jackson, do I have a second? Trustee Dar, is there any discussion? Please move to voting. Trustee Bridges?
Yes.
9-0, motion passes. And then the last item is D, consideration and possible action regarding litigation against JDW Energy LLC, doing business as Next Gen Air in connection with the South Hills Elementary School HVAC replacement project. Do I have a motion?
I do. I move to authorize litigation against JDW Energy, LLC DBA Next Gen Air in connection with the South Hills Elementary School HVAC replacement project.
Dr. Ryan, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, please move to voting. Trustee
Yes.
Bridges? All right.
Yes.
9-0, motion passes, and the time is 8:47 p.m., and this meeting is adjourned.